I'm Snoop Dogg, and I'm giving up smoke. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. But I'm done with it. I'm done with the coughing and my clothes smelling all funky. I'm going smokeless. Solo stove, fixed fire. They took out the smoke. Now you can have a nice blaze without any clouds ruining your day. Go smokeless. Go to solostove.com. Tell them Big Snoop Dogg sent you.
When things feel a bit chaotic, Instacart helps deliver milk and sausage. Add a little life to your cart. Get stuff from literally all your stores, from baby wipes to albacore. Add a little life to your cart. Instacart helps get your groceries. Your first 3 deliveries are free.
Download Instacart. Add life to cart. Terms apply.
Time now for the Nissan Thrilling Play of the Week, and thanks to Nissan as a sponsor. San Francisco's star quarterback threw for 314 yards and 4 touchdowns, 3 of those to his star wide receiver, while Philadelphia's quarterback was checked for a concussion in their 42-19 loss at home on Sunday night. The fiery NFC Championship game rematch also featured 6 straight possessions in which San Francisco was able to score. They are now 9-3 on the season, while Philadelphia is 10-2. Philadelphia was a little bit scared as their quarterback jogged off the field in the fourth quarter and went straight to the locker room. He was cleared to play and return to action with about 10 minutes left. But by the time he got back, San Francisco was up 35-13. The last 4 games, Philadelphia has been able to come back from behind and win, but not today. San Francisco is 33-1 when leading by 8+ points under their head coach. Thanks to Nissan for presenting us with our weekly thrilling play. And remember, for endless thrills like more fun, more action, more guts, Nissan has the vehicle for you. From sports cars, sedans, and EVs to pickups and crossovers, at Nissan, more is all they do.
It's time. It's time. Time to get in the zone. Time to get in the zone with the 49ers Web Zone. This is the No Huddle Podcast with Al and Brian.
What's up, faithful? You're listening to another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle Podcast, a part of the Odyssey Network. I am Brian Renick. That is Al Sacco. It's his flu game today. Al's under the weather. Al's also being affected by the weather out there in New York. There is a windstorm. His power just got restored, and there's no telling if it will go out or not. So if it does, I will steer this ship into the harbor at the end. But Al, another Sunday passes, another incredibly impressive performance by Brock Purdy and the 49ers. How'd you feel about this game? Feels like it went about how we thought, but there was some moments where you're just like maybe a little bit on edge. I don't know that I ever was on edge, but how'd you feel about the game?
Well, to start with me, yeah, I'm battling. I've been sick like twice in the last 3 weeks, man. And you keep telling me this is my flu game, Brian. But the difference between Michael Jordan and me is I'm a little bitch when I get sick. So I would never have had that Michael Jordan moment because I would have been in bed just complaining about how shitty I feel the whole time. But I'm a professional. So here I am. You know, this was one of those games where I feel like just most of the games with the Niners where they're better than everybody else. So even if things look a little off and they don't look like themselves, I just feel like eventually they have too much talent for most of the teams that they're going to play. And that's what this game was like. Yeah, there was some stuff on offense that was going on, and you're like, they just look sort of out of whack right now. Defensively in the beginning, it looked like they missed Arik Armstead for those first couple of series. But then they just get it together because they're way more talented than the Seahawks are. And you can't stop Deebo, who was playing out of his mind. And you can't stop Ayuk, who is now just the 4th wide receiver in 49ers history to have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, along with Bolden, Rice, and T.O. You can't stop Kittle, who continues to score touchdowns and make it 1,000 yards this year with Purdy. You can't stop McCaffrey, who may challenge Frank Gore for the most yards in the season for the 49ers rushing. And you can't stop Purdy on offense. And you can't stop Nick Bosa, and you can't stop Fred Warner. And Lenore played fantastic. So it just goes on and on and on. This team is just loaded. And in a game like this, it could have been 20-20 going into the fourth quarter. I'm still like, it's just a matter of time before the Niners pull ahead. And they just did in this game again.
Yeah, and congrats to Christian McCaffrey becoming the first running back in the Kyle Shanahan 49ers era to rush for 1,000 yards, which is wild to me based on, how successful this run game has been, that there hasn't been an individual runner to run for 1,000 yards under Kyle Shanahan.
No.
So Christian McCaffrey gets that honor. And you talked about, the Cowboys of the 90s, right? They had the triplets, right? The famous triplets, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, and Troy Aikman, or you could say Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, and the other guy that I can never, ever remember, but he always used to burn the 49ers.
Alvin Harper.
Thank you, Alvin Harper. Thank you. You could even throw their tight end in there. But this 49ers offense has, I guess you could call it a quartet, if you will, of playmakers. And that is Ayuk, Samuel, Kittle, and McCaffrey. And their pace, and this is according to Levin Black, former contributor at 49ers Web Zone, does a podcast right now with Stats Guerrera over on Rob's channel. But their pace updates. Brandon Ayuk is on pace for 75 receptions, 1,405 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Deebo Samuel's on pace for 61 receptions, 1,008 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then 220 rush yards and 7 touchdowns, which is 12 touchdowns total, and 1,228 yards from scrimmage. George Kittle is on pace for 69 receptions, 1,061 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And McCaffrey is on pace for 1,539 rushing yards, 16 rushing touchdowns, 68 receptions, 571 yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns, which would be 2,110 yards from scrimmage and 23 total touchdowns. Or, just put simply, this quartet is on pace for 1,000 scrimmage yards for 4 different players.
Absurd.
This offense is insanity right now. There's not an offense in the NFL right now. You could put the Cowboys in just the conversation, but there isn't an offense operating at the level that the San Francisco 49ers offense is operating right now. And it's just really fun to watch. It just really is just so much fun to see.
They're doing things at a historic level. I get NFL communications, and every week after a Niners game, it's just things that you're like seriously? Again, they're doing this. Deebo Samuel is the second player in NFL history with at least 100 receiving yards and 1 touchdown reception and 1 rushing touchdown in consecutive games, joining some guy named Timmy Brown, not Tim Brown from the Raiders, Timmy Brown, who played in 1960 with the Eagles. Kittle has over 6,000 receiving yards since entering the NFL in 2017, and he's just the 5th tight end in NFL history with at least 6,000 receiving yards in his first 7 career seasons. McCaffrey has 10,096 scrimmage yards and 77 scrimmage touchdowns in 88 career games, and is just the 6th player in the Super Bowl era with at least 10,000 scrimmage yards and 75 scrimmage touchdowns in his first 90 games. And Purdy, you can just keep going on and on and on and on. I mean, the list keeps getting longer and longer. This week, he has 12 games with a passer rating of 110 or higher in his career, tied with Dan Marino for the 3rd most such games.
Oh, tied with his boy.
His man, his idol. Purdy's the 4th quarterback in NFL history with a completion percentage of 70 plus or higher in 7 consecutive games in the same season. Only Montana has more, and he has 8, so Purdy can catch him this week. It's every week they're doing historic things. The quarterback is doing historic things. The running back is doing historic things. Pick a receiver that's doing something either historic, whether it's for the franchise or overall. It really is just an unbelievable time to be a 49ers fan. Now they have to finish it. And this is a team that's so good and so great that you want them to finish it and get that ring. And I do, Brian, I got to give Kyle Shanahan his flowers a little bit here.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the players, and rightfully so.
Sure.
But Kyle Shanahan, what he has done, especially in the last 5 years. So now Niners have had 4 head coaches with 4 more seasons of 10 plus wins. Walsh, Seifert, Mariucci, and now Shanahan. He's also the 4th head coach to win 10 plus in at least 3 straight seasons for the Niners, with Walsh, Seifert, and Jim Harbaugh. And if the Niners win out, or even won 3 out of their next 4, he has 13 wins again.
Mhm.
Niners have won 13 plus games 11 times in franchise history. So this would be the 12th time if they do it. And
Mhm.
Shanahan would have been the coach for 3 of those. Seifert was the coach for
Yeah.
4, Walsh for 3, right now Shanahan for 2, Mariucci for 1, and Harbaugh for 1. And I understand there's a 17th game now. Everything we talk about, you have to incorporate the 17th
Sure.
game. It's just what
Yeah.
football is now. But Kyle, since, we talked a lot about, or at least I did, after those first 2 seasons, he gets to the Super Bowl. And then I say, okay, now he's got to start winning 10 games every year to be an elite coach. And they have the 2020 season, and it was a weird year with COVID,
Yeah.
and they had to go to Arizona. Tons of injuries. Bosa's out, Deebo's out, Kittle's out, Garoppolo's out. It was a strange season. He goes 6-10. But since then, you're talking 3 straight years now of 10 wins or more. He's been in the NFC Championship game the last 2 years, and since the start of 2019, he has a 52-27 regular season record as a head coach. Kyle Shanahan has put himself now in the elite coach level. He's got to win a Super Bowl to be on the Belichickian, tier, Andy Reid. But Andy Reid was an elite coach before he won a Super Bowl.
Yes,
Andy Reid was a phenomenal coach, and I think Shanahan is right there right now. If he gets a Super Bowl, he goes into the next stratosphere. But he's one of those top 5-6 guys right now that he's going to be the coach of this team probably for a decade, and he really deserves a lot of credit. He's stubborn. He's in his own way. It's fine. A lot of these guys are, because he gets it done on the field. His players respond to him. They're always going to have a good offense when he's in there. And what they've done with the roster and the culture of this team to keep them at perennial, not only playoff contenders, but Super Bowl contenders, he just deserves his flowers right now. And I feel like we talk about the players all the time, and it's well and good, and it's deserved. But I got to give it up for Kyle.
Oh, 100%. And one of the things I like is, that list that you listed off, you said Walsh, Seifert, Mariucci, and now Shanahan. And what I love about that is each one of those guys after Walsh can still be traced back to Walsh, which I appreciate, right? Seifert was his defensive coordinator. Mariucci came up under Holmgren, who came up under Walsh. And then Shanahan, his dad was Seifert's offensive coordinator when we won the Super Bowl, and I'm not saying that he's, a Walsh disciple, but at the same time, what he did was add the outside zone to the West Coast offense, which is, invented by Bill Walsh. So, you just love the kind of the history there where, this 49ers dynasty that's and premier franchise designation that started under Bill Walsh has been continued by guys related in some way to Bill Walsh. And I really like that. This team is again, you start to run out of ways to describe or superlatives to use about just how good they've been. The 49ers averaged 9.9 yards per play yesterday. They averaged a first down every time they ran a play. That's wild. That is in absolute insanity. Not only that, Brock Purdy threw for the most yards in his career on 19 completions. He completed 19 passes for 368 yards, somewhere around there.
Yep.
Remember? Yeah, 368 on 19 completions. And here's the other thing. You brought it up that Brock Purdy now has 7 straight games of a completion percentage of 70% or higher. He was at 69.2% on that last possession of the game. And I remember tweeting out, because I remembered exactly what you said in our preview. And I was like, man, he needs one more completion on one more attempt to get up to 70%. And he got that one. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan had any idea, but maybe he did. I don't know. But again, just the fact that he was able to get there at the end, I loved it. The 49ers had 12 explosive plays on Sunday against the Seahawks, which is a 22.6% explosive play rate, which is the third highest of the Shanahan era. And an explosive play is either 12 yards rushing or 16 yards passing. So the 49ers had on Sunday 11 plays of 20 or more yards. Of those 11, 6 were 30 or more, and 4 of them were 40 or more yards. I mean, they opened the game with a 72-yard Christian McCaffrey rush, right? McCaffrey had 70 more yards on the ground the rest of the game. But it was, and the funny part is, we talked about him earlier. Rob Guerrera of, now of his own network, tweeted out that Pete Carroll in the post game talked about how much time they spent in preparation leading up to this game to defend the Christian McCaffrey run that he broke for 72 yards. And on the first play of the game, he broke it for 72 yards. The one running play that they spent the most time, trying to figure out how to defend. And it's just like, that's just where this team is right now. And
as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay red hot at FanDuel right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. You've been thinking about joining. There's no better time than right now. We're in the sports solstice, if you will. Spreads, props, totals, and more. Every sport on the planet is playing, and you can get it at FanDuel.com. So visit FanDuel.com/2400 and get involved with the NFL season. It's FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame moneyline wager required. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text Next Step to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com code podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the end of the year edition of the Hey, Did You Know podcast. So year end means holidays. Hey, did you know Americans eat 1.4 billion pounds of turkey every Thanksgiving? Well, year end also means the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Hey, did you know it's the best deals of the season on Hyundai's most popular vehicles? Well, isn't that interesting? And since we were talking turkey, hey, did you know only male turkeys gobble? Hey, did you know every new Hyundai comes with America's best warranty and 3 years or 36,000 miles of complimentary maintenance? Hey, did you know the Statue of Liberty is the largest holiday gift ever given? Hey, did you know when the year ends, so do the deals? December 30th is National Bacon Day, you know. It's your journey. Own every mile at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Get 0% APR for 60 months, plus 0 payments for 90 days, or $2,500 bonus cash on the Hyundai Tucson. Now, during the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Offer ends January 2nd. Call 562-314-4603 for details.
And, I was telling you prior to recording, I said, these post-game pods that we're doing just become, just a gush fest because of how good this team is. And I think at this point, especially with 4 games left and really Brock Purdy being in the heart of the MVP conversation, these episodes are also going to be, I said, we got a new segment and I'm going to call it Brock Talk. And it's just going to be, again, an opportunity to gush about what Brock Purdy is doing this season, how it relates to history at times. And it's just wild. But let's start with a chart that our buddy Akash, friend of the show, tweeted out earlier today. And it's just a comparison between really, you and I said this again prior to coming on, that this MVP race is really down to 3 people. And one of them is a non-quarterback, which almost eliminates him right off the bat, and that's Tyreek Hill. I think if Tyreek Hill breaks Calvin Johnson's receiving record, which essentially is going to put him at 2,000 yards, which has never been done before, and he does that in 16 games and not 17 games, I think there's a definite conversation about Tyreek Hill being MVP. Like, this would probably be the season where you get a non-quarterback or a non-running back, really, because I don't know that a wide receiver has ever won an MVP award. I have no idea. Someone might correct me, but it's Tyreek Hill, and then it's Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott. And when you break it down, right? And Akash broke this down to passing yards, passing touchdowns, interceptions, completion percentage, yards per attempt, adjusted net yards per attempt, passer rating, QBR, EPA per play, success rate, completion percentage over expected, CPOE, DVOA, which is the kind of the holy grail of advanced metrics. It's kind of like baseball's WAR. And then another one that we're not going to talk about because you and I were like, we don't really understand that one too much, but DYARs. But in all of those, Brock Purdy leads Dak Prescott, except for passing touchdowns. Prescott has 28, Brock has 25, and interceptions. Prescott has 6, Brock has 7. Every other category, passing yards, Brock Purdy leads. Completion percentage, Brock Purdy leads. Yards per attempt, Brock Purdy leads by almost 2 yards. By 2.1 yards, 9.9 to 7.8. And that 7.8 puts Dak 4th. So it's not like Dak is far down. He's 4th. That's just how much more Brock has yards per attempt than even the next guy. The next guy is Tua, who still has a game to play tonight, but he's still more than a yard more than Tua. And more specifically than that 9.9 yards is now the highest yards per attempt in NFL history on a minimum of 300 attempts, tying Kurt Warner at 9.9. So now, granted, Brock still has 4 games to play, and that number could either go up or down. But as it currently stands, with a minimum of 300 attempts, Brock Purdy is now tied with Kurt Warner with the most yards per attempt in a season at 9.9. Not only that, but he leads in adjusted net yards per attempt. He's at 9.3. The next closest again is Tua, who still has to play at 8.1. The best adjusted net yards per attempt numbers in NFL history. Number 1, 2004, Peyton Manning at 9.78. Number 2 is 2011, Aaron Rodgers at 9.39. Both of those seasons ended in MVPs. And number 3 is 2023, Brock Purdy at 9.33. 0.06 away from Aaron Rodgers. Brock Purdy still has an opportunity to get to second. I don't know that he's going to get to Peyton Manning at an ungodly 9.78. That's unbelievable, but still. And
you're talking about him with Peyton Manning. Think about that.
Right.
These and then elite, the elite of the elite.
Yeah. And the one that I loved is highest passer rating in NFL history through the first 500 attempts. Number 1, Brock Purdy at 113.8. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes at 103.9. That's how much higher Brock Purdy has been through his first 500 attempts than any other player in NFL history. Number 2 being Pat Mahomes, who we often talk about as possibly one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen play. Number 3, Aaron Rodgers at 103.6. So again, what Brock Purdy is doing is not just impressive for 2023, it's historically impressive, and it's just so much fun to be a part of.
So he's got 359 pass attempts this year. That's 22nd. Joe Burrow has more pass attempts than him, and Burrow's played 3 less games, and he was injured for part of one of them. 22nd, and he is currently 2nd in the NFL in passing yards. Tua will most likely eclipse him tonight, so he'll be 3rd. That's incredibly efficient, all-time efficient. And when I'm watching this game the other day, here's what I thought when he hit that throw to Deebo, the 54-yarder was just a beautiful throw. Gorgeous. I mean, just beautiful. That's what's been missing for this team. And that's the difference now. They can play clunky because they looked a little clunky at first. And then they hit that throw and boom, they're off and running. Boom, they scored just like that. They couldn't do that in the past with Kyle Shanahan. And it's been a really long time with anybody. So it was always death by 1,000 paper cuts. So you get these games where it is clunky and it's 20-13. It's 17-13 late in the third quarter, early in the fourth, and there's margin for error. Because of that, they lose some of these games that they maybe should have won in the past. Now they can do the quick strike. They can score from anywhere in the field at any time. And that was not the case until Purdy became the quarterback. You'd have some yak stuff where guys could break it, where Deebo could catch a screen and take it to the house. But in terms of the downfield passing game, it was not there until Purdy came. And Purdy is now, you read me some stats earlier. His downfield passing game, best in the NFL. It's not close. Best we've seen in a long time. It's not close. And those aren't the length of the completions where he threw 3 yards. No, this is him throwing 20 plus yards down the field. Best we've seen.
Yeah, he currently leads the NFL in deep pass completion percentage, which Jimmy Garoppolo in 2019 led the NFL in that stat, but he was wildly behind anybody else in terms of attempts. So that was less about efficiency and more about, he's taking advantage of the few times that he does it. Brock Purdy leads the NFL in deep passing percentage, but he also leads the NFL in 20 plus yard attempts at 61. He's tied with CJ Stroud. So not only does he lead, but he does so because he's doing it often, right? Like he's throwing downfield more than anybody else in the NFL, except for CJ Stroud, who's tied with him. And we're talking, again, 20 plus yards down the field. If you break that to 30 and 40, he leads in those categories as well. So, again, I don't know where this narrative comes from because it's imaginary at this point, but this narrative that Brock Purdy is a check down merchant and that he, it only has these numbers because of yards after the catch. And the reality is that's not the case at all. There isn't a quarterback in the NFL who throws more often deep down the field right now than Brock Purdy does. And not only does he lead in attempts, but he leads in completion percentage. The kid is just playing out of his mind. And I mean, I at this point, I just don't, there isn't any good faith argument against his candidacy for MVP. And again, if the guy that he's going against is a guy that he faced already in the season and his team won 42-10, that's again another feather in his cap. And so obviously we need to see how the last 4 games of the season go. For Dallas has a significantly more difficult schedule than the 49ers do. The 49ers face the Cardinals, then the Ravens, then the Commanders, and then the Rams at home. Dallas still has to play Buffalo. They still have to play Detroit, and they still have to play
Miami, right?
And they still have to play Miami. Yeah.
Okay.
So again, a significantly more difficult slate for them. And if they win all those games and Dak looks great, then that's probably going to sew it up for him.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I think the voters would kind of go that way. But we talked to Peter King, and Peter said Purdy was the leader in the clubhouse for him right now. So who knows? Right. What else is scary about this team? I feel like we're talking about the offense, and the defense has been really good too, but there's just so much to talk about with the offense. Deebo Samuel is 2021 Deebo Samuel again. That should terrify the rest of the NFL, because we've been talking, look, Ayuk's playing great. Kittle's back. McCaffrey's McCaffrey. We have a quarterback, but Deebo hasn't been the same dude. He had a down year last year, even by his own admission. And early this season, he battled injuries. He was beat up, and then he got hurt. He only had 1 touchdown going into week 9. A lot of that was because of injuries. Just 100-yard game. But since coming back from the bye, he's got, how many touchdowns does he have? 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
and he leads the NFL in receiving since week 11. And in the last 2 weeks, he has been out of his mind. Absolutely out of his mind. Against Philadelphia, 4 catches, $116, 2 touchdowns, 3 carries, 22 yards, and another score. Against Seattle, 7 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown, and then he had another 1-yard touchdown. So 5 touchdowns in the last 2 games. He looks like he shot out of a cannon. I loved the way he made his name, Adam. What's the safety's name?
Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams. There it is. Just looked like he was his feet were in concrete.
Yeah.
Just flew right by him. It was just, made him look terrible. Deebo's on another level right now. And if he's on that level with the rest of the guys, I don't see how you could stop this team.
Well, and what I loved about specifically that touchdown, right? And again, this comes a little bit back to the Brock Purdy conversation. Deebo Samuel in his post-game press conference, and if you watch that play, you can see that he gets to Adams' level and he starts to throttle down, because on that play, he's the last read. He's the last read on that play. There's, I believe, 4 routes. He's the last read. And so they've run that play many times before. Deebo has never gotten the ball. And you can see him start to slow down. All of a sudden, he hits that second gear because he sees that the ball is coming. And that's because Brock Purdy went through his progressions. And when Jamal Adams Purdy talked about it in his postgame as well, when Adams took 2 steps forward to come to start to defend, I believe it was Christian McCaffrey on a deep in. He takes those 2 steps. Purdy recognizes it and just heaves it to Deebo because he knows that Deebo now has a step on him. That is, again, not a throw that other quarterbacks in this offense would have even attempted. Because either A, they weren't getting to that progression fast enough, right? The last read on the play, or B, just not trusting the pocket or whatever the case may be. This is exactly what this kid has brought to this offense. It has elevated the offense. I don't like that phrase, elevating the offense, because it's just like a pithy phrase. Like, what does that mean? Like, quantify that for me, right? Because that tends to be a lot of the argument for, well, Brock Purdy doesn't elevate the offense, Dak Prescott elevates his offense. And I want to be like, okay, then tell me how. Show me. Like, if that's your argument, tell me why. Because I have things that I can point to about how Brock Purdy has elevated this offense, and we talked about him last week. We talk about big throw or big time throw percentage, right? You talk about deep completion percentage. You talk about deep passing attempts, right? These are all significantly higher with Brock Purdy running the offense than Jimmy Garoppolo or any other quarterback that Kyle Shanahan has had in San Francisco. So yes, Brock Purdy is elevating this offense, and there are things that you can point to. So point me to those things when you argue that for Dak Prescott. And I just don't think that people can. And it's just because, again, they cannot contextualize what it is that Brock Purdy is doing. And it's because he looks the way that he looks. I don't know if you saw his postgame or his pregame and postgame outfit, but I mean, he's given off Kirk Cousins vibes like mad. And
he
maybe
shots
that's
at
part
Coles,
of,
man.
Yeah. And maybe let's be honest, he's not even making now. Most of us don't, but he's not even making $1 million a year, right? But he has to live in Santa Clara. He has to have a roommate. Like, he is shopping with Cole's cash. But you know what? Hey, good for him. But I think just people have a hard time with it. They just have a hard time understanding how this guy could fall to the last pick in the draft and be this good. Obviously, there's got to be a reason, because if he was this good, he would have gone earlier. And it's just the reality is scouting is an inexact science, and people are going to miss, on those that they draft in the first round. And they're going to miss on people that they could have drafted earlier because they're a lot better than what we anticipated. And that's where Brock Purdy is right now. And, like you said, we've concentrated on the offense, and rightfully so, because it's the offense that has been historically good. But let's remember, this defense now leads the NFL in points per game allowed.
It does. And one more thing I thought this was really interesting before we get to the defense. In Matt Ryan's 2016 MVP season, which was under Kyle Shanahan, He threw for this is 16 games, but he threw for 4,944 yards, 38 TDs, 69.9% completion, 117.1 rating, QBR of 79.6, and a yards per attempt at 9.3. I mean, that's an all-time season. That's a phenomenal year. Phenomenal.
Yep.
Purdy this year, and it is a 17-game projection. 4,646 yards, 33 touchdowns, 70.2% completion, 116.9 rating, 74.7 QBR, 9.9 yards per attempt. Pretty similar. Pretty similar to what you're seeing in that Matt Ryan year was always, we've always said peak Kyle Shanahan, right? If you ever got that, oh my God. They're getting pretty close to it right now with him.
Nobody wants a surprise in their jelly donut. It's toothpaste? That's because the middle is the most important part. At Graybar, we're at the middle of electrical and datacom jobs across the country, connecting installers, facility managers, and business owners with smart solutions for their most challenging projects, which means stocking and delivering crucial products on time and on budget with no surprises, thanks to our nationwide logistics network. Yep, Graybar does that.
I'm Snoop Dogg, and I'm giving up smoke. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. But I'm done with it. I'm done with the coughing and my clothes smelling all funky. I'm going smokeless. Solo stove, fix 5. They took out the smoke. Now you can have a nice blaze without any clouds ruining your day. Go smokeless. Go to solostove.com. Tell them Big Snoop Dogg sent you.
Yeah, this defense, Nick Bosa's up to 9.5 sacks now for the slow start and everything else. He's getting his stats.
And third all time as a 49er now.
No, Bosa? No, he's 7th. Pretty sure he's 7th. Do you count? Hold on. It might be, but they used to not count sacks until 1981 on Pro Football Reference.
Oh, okay.
And now they do. And I have it up. So let's take a look at it and see. Because I was looking at it the other day, and I thought there was a dude who was first, and I was like, who the hell is that guy? Yeah, okay. So Cedric Harmon, who played for the team from 1970 to 1979 before stats were official, but they have him at 109 right now.
Okay.
108. 108.
Okay. Because what I saw was Bryant Young was number 1 in whatever list I saw. And that list
you might be right
based on that. Had Bosa at 3.
So we got Bryant Young, 89.5, Tommy Hart, who again, before it was official, 72.5, Charles Haley, 66.5.
I saw Young, Haley, and then Bosa.
Dwayne Board, they must not count as 79 stats through 81. He's 61. Charlie Kruger again before 54. So yeah, Bosa, if you're talking when stat became official, you're right.
Right.
52.5. And he just passed Ahmad Brooks, who just got 6 sacks every year for 10 years with the Niners. But it's amazing how quickly he's climbing up, and he's going to be, before it's all said and done, he's probably going to be the leader for the Niners in that regard.
Oh yeah.
So he's just been an amazing player. I was a little concerned when Ward went out. I was concerned in the beginning because Seattle was moving the ball. The touchdown to Metcalf, that was just a phenomenal throw by Luck. I mean, Ambry Thomas had good coverage there.
Yep.
He just fit it right in. It was kind of like one of those things where I'm like, what are you going to do? There's nothing. He had good coverage. The ball just went where his hand wasn't. But they were running the ball. Charbonnet had a couple big carries, and I'm like, shit, they miss Armstead. Is this going to hurt them? And then Ward goes out. All right, Oliver's in. Is this going to snowball? What's going to happen? But it didn't, and they played great. And one of the reasons is Demo, Lenore, in coverage against Seattle. So we had 41 snaps in coverage, 86.3 PFF cover grade, 10 yards allowed on 5 targets, 2 forced incompletions, 2 pass breakups, and a rating of 47.9. So this is from PFF. So he played a phenomenal game. Played like a number 1 corner with Ward out. Ambry Thomas, I can't say enough good things about the guy coming out of nowhere. And then you have, the stars doing stars things. Fred Warner looking really good, and Bosa played well. So the Niners on defense, they're really starting to kind of just get their legs underneath them. The front looks like the front. If they can stay like this and keep holding teams to under 20 points, the Niners aren't going to lose many games, man.
They're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah. I mean, when you have a defense like this and an offense like this, it's fun to watch. And again, we gave Kyle Shanahan his flowers. Got to give Steve Wilkes credit too. Whatever he was doing wrong, whatever the issues were, he took a look in the mirror clearly at the bye and said, okay, how can I make this better? He wasn't one of those guys who's like, well, this is my system. This is what I do. He clearly said, all right, I got to make some adjustments here. We may have to change some personnel, whatever. And he did it. And good for him. And now, like you said, this defense is top of the league again.
Yeah, I would like to give my rose to Javon Kinlaw. I would like to just give him some flowers here, because from 2020 when he was drafted to 2022, he played 939 snaps. He had 30 pressures, 1.5 sacks, and 4 pass breakups. In 2023 alone, he's played 319 snaps. He has 27 pressures, 2.5 sacks, 3 pass breakups, and a 76.3 pass rush grade from PFF, which is the highest in his career. So Kinlaw seems to finally be fully healthy and is producing at a level that the 49ers thought that he could when they made him a first round draft pick in 2020. Good for Kinlaw, because, I do think that they missed Armstead, which, by the way, Kinlaw came into Kinlaw's pregame outfit when he was coming into the stadium. He was wearing an Armstead jersey, which I was like, that's awesome. But I think they initially missed Armstead, but then Kinlaw stepped it up and really played in a way that mirrors a lot of what Arik Armstead brings to this defensive line. So kudos to Javon Kinlaw for, enduring a very, I would assume, frustrating first 3 years in the NFL due to injuries, and is really playing well in 2023. The 49ers did not pick up his 5th-year option, so he will be a free agent at the end of this year. It'll be interesting to see if they, do anything to try and bring him back. They've got Brandon Ayuk to pay. They've possibly got Chase Young to pay. We'll see, kind of how that goes. But kudos to Kinlaw for playing really well in a season that is important for him and his future career. And then also wanted to highlight Jair Brown. Since taking over as the full-time starter for Hufanga midway through week 11, he has an 80.1 coverage grade from PFF, which is 7th among safeties. He has 2 interceptions, which is tied for 1st among safeties. And he also has 2 pass breakups out of 8 total targets. And he has 6 defensive stops, which is tied for 5th among safeties as well. So Jair Brown has come in, and much like Brock Purdy, nothing seems too big for him. He had 1 blown coverage in that game in week 11 when he came in. But outside of that, he's played really, 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 really well. And then last, but certainly not least, we got to bring up Mitch Wishnowsky. As one of my favorite movies as a kid, football movies, was Necessary Roughness. And there's Rob Schneider is the announcer for a fictional college football team. And there is an Australian player on there. And at one point in the movie, he's running down the field and he goes, "There goes the little Australian rugger." And so that's exactly what I yelled as Mitch Wishnowsky is running, called his own number on the fake punt. But not only did he call his own number, but he got up to 20 miles per hour.
He was flying, man.
Track. He was flying.
If Ronnie Bell didn't fall down, that would have been one of the plays of the year.
And that's what sucks, is that you can't even blame Bell for that penalty.
Yeah,
he just literally slipped. It just sucks. But yeah, kudos to Mitch Wishnowsky, who has had a Pro Bowl level year as a punter in terms of pinning teams deep. And now you throw in, a 20 mile per hour run. And we've also seen him, use the hit stick every once in a while on punt returns. So, they've got a 4th round punter and a 3rd round kicker. And a lot of people like to make fun of that, but at the very least, that Mitch Wishnowsky pick has paid dividends. And he's a fun guy to have on the team.
Going back to Armstead too, did you catch the video that the team did for him?
Yes, it was awesome.
So Armstead got nominated for his 4th Walter Payton Man of the Year. Because
is it 4 straight?
Community. So not sure.
I
know he has 4 of them.
Yeah, and I know he was last year, so at least it's 2 years straight. But yeah.
What he does is, as good as he is on the field, what he does in the community, even better. And you could see how much the team did a video about him and talked talked about him and what he means to them and everything like that.
Yeah.
You know, and he got emotional. Some players got emotional. You could see how much he means to the locker room, how much he means to the 49ers. And he means a lot to them. So maybe you can't see that because it's in the locker room. The fans don't see it.
Right.
And you always can't see it on the stat sheet. He's not a guy who's going to get 10 sacks. But when he's not there, you know, the pocket's not getting pushed back. You notice when he's not there, the results on the field. So he means so much to the 49ers in a lot of ways. And I hope the narrative that he's overpaid or he doesn't deserve money or whatever it is, I hope that narrative is gone now and fans understand what he means on and off the field. And maybe we get him to a Pro Bowl this year. Maybe the fans can go out and vote and get him to his first Pro Bowl because he deserves it, man. He's going to go down as a 49er that people look back on and we're like, yeah, he was a real 49er. I'm a Yankee fan. I was talking about real Yankees, right?
Yeah.
Arik Armstead is a real 49er. And I think people are going to look back and appreciate him.
Well, and what I loved about that video is one of the prominent interviewees was Randy Gregory, who hasn't even been here a full season.
Yeah,
and the way that Randy Gregory talked about Arik Armstead, I was like genuinely touched. And, you know, obviously I mean, outside of one of the things that I appreciate about Arik Armstead is he's from the Sacramento area, which is where I live. And a lot of what he does is for the Sacramento area in terms of his charity work and things like that. So just for as a community member, I appreciate Arik Armstead on that level. But you could tell, like you said, how important he is to that defensive line room. He's the elder statesman in the room. He's the longest tenured 49er in that room. But like I said, Randy Gregory, who came midseason talking so glowingly about Arik Armstead and not only just about him, but about what Arik Armstead means to Randy Gregory. And Chase Young was in that video as well. And Chase Young has been here for 5 weeks. And he talked, you know, was able to talk in a way that you're like, man, Arik Armstead has had a profound impact on these guys in the locker room as well. And you just love to see it. And, you know, I quote tweeted Arik Armstead's Pro Bowl thing. And I said, hey, let's get him the honor. He won't be able to play in the game, but let's get him the honor.
Busy.
Yeah, he'll be busy, but let's get him the honor because he hasn't received that honor yet. And 49er fans are pretty engaged on Twitter. So let's get this man a Pro Bowl nod along with, you know, the majority of this team, because let's be perfectly honest, this is a team loaded with Pro Bowlers, just loaded with them.
All right, before we get out of here, I got to address this Chiefs thing, dude. With the penalty and Mahomes and Andy Reid out after the game. Listen, for those who may not know, and I'm sure everybody listening to the show knows what happened. So Kadarius Toney lined up offsides. Dude, literally, you could not see the football. Like, he was clearly not lined up the way he was supposed to. So the ref throws a flag, but on the play, Mahomes completes a pass to Kelsey, who runs a little while, throws a lateral to Toney. Toney scores what would have been the go-ahead touchdown against the Bills. There's still a minute and change left. The Bills could have come back, but it looked like the go-ahead touchdown. But it wasn't, because the play never really happened because Toney was lined up offsides and the refs threw the flag. So Mahomes was pissed, really pissed. It looked like he was going after the ref at the end of the game. And they had last week too against the Packers. It looked like it should have been a pass interference call on Green Bay that didn't get called. You know, they don't get that call. So Mahomes has been frustrated this season. His receivers are dropping everything. They're 8-5. Maybe everything just boiled over. But Mahomes is after the game talking about how, you know what, like the refs, they got to let us play. And if they should have told Toney he was lined up and gave him a chance to get in the right spot, that's what they normally do. And Andy Reid came out and said it was an embarrassment that they threw the flag. Here's my thought on this. If you listen to the show, you know nobody dislikes the refs more than me. And I think at the end of games, they need to keep their flag in their pocket. I unless it's an obvious foul, I think you need to let them play. I completely agree with that. However, right, this wasn't a holding call that you're like, did he hold him? Or a pass interference where you say, wow, that was ticky-tack. He was just lined up off sides. It was the most cut and dry thing. What do you want the guy to do? Not throw the flag just because there could be a legendary play that could happen? No. Like, I didn't think I would ever defend a referee, but he did his job. He threw the flag. He didn't know that play was going to happen. So Mahomes is out there crying about it, and Reid is out there crying about it. And I'm thinking to myself, There's been no team other than the Patriots in their run that has been more fortunate lately than the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. In their 2 Super Bowls, there are a lot of reasons why the Chiefs have won 2 titles. But they've also had calls go their way that have helped them win those titles. They have had fortunate calls. The Niners Super Bowl. And this is not a Niners fan complaining. This is just the facts of the matter. And I'm going to defend Philadelphia too. They held the Niners. They held the entire game. They held Nick Bosa, the Niners, that entire game. And you know what? If you're going to let it go on both sides and you're not going to call anything, fine. I don't give a shit. But you better not throw one flag if you're going to let that happen. Again, unless it's pass interference and someone literally gets tackled or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
But to end the first half of that Super Bowl, they called an offensive pass interference call on George Kittle on a play that definitely, I think, would have at least been 3 points for the 49ers. It was momentum-changing play. Did Kittle extend his arm? Sure. Yeah, he probably did. But if you're not calling it the entire game, why do you randomly call it there? So the Chiefs were very fortunate. And on that wasp play where Mahomes hits Tyreek Hill down the field, if you watch that replay, Nick Bosa is like, looks like they're slow dancing with him. Like he's got arms all over him and everything else.
Literally inside his sleeve, holding on to his.
And it's obvious. Bosa's like got his arms out and everything else. So you did a lot of things to win that Super Bowl, Chiefs, but you also got the benefit of the calls in that Super Bowl. Fast forward, and I'm not even bringing up regular season shit and everything else that's happened in the playoffs and everything else. Just talking about the Super Bowls. End of the game, they call holding, and I forgot who the Eagles corner was, but against Juju Smith-Schuster, where it looked like he kind of glazed the back of the Smith-Schuster's lower back. Not an obvious holding call. Not something you call at that point in the game, which essentially sealed the Super Bowl and assured that Jalen Hurts was not going to go back the other way and have a chance to win the game because the Chiefs were able to run out the clock and win. Now, Mahomes talked about you want to see what happens. You want to let it play out on the field. Well, that didn't happen to the Eagles. So call it both ways. Like, I understand you're frustrated, but based on what you guys have been given from the officials or have not called, whatever you want to put it, shut up, man. Just shut up. Be like, you know what? Like, I'm pissed. This is what I thought they should have done, but you know what? We've gotten calls too. It's gone both ways. And if you want to say the officiating sucks, I agree with you. But in that situation, it was the most cut and dry thing in the world. So why are you out there crying? And Andy Reid did the same thing. It was such a bad look for both of them. And maybe it's just their frustrations coming through, but holy shit, man. I listened to him. I'm like, are you kidding me? With everything that's happened to you in the past 3 or 4 years, with all the calls you've gotten, with the benefit of the officials that you've gotten, you're out here saying this, give me a break. I thought it was a joke.
Well, and one of the things they said was like, we line up like that often. We did it in that game and it never got called. And it's like, that's like me going on a 300-mile, like I let's just say I'm driving home from Disneyland, right? Let's say 400 miles, and 15 miles from home, I get pulled over because I'm speeding, and the cop comes up to the window and I'm like, why'd you pull me over? Well, because you were speeding. Yeah, but I've been speeding for all 385 miles that I was driving before now, and I didn't get pulled over. So why am I getting pulled over now? Just because you were breaking the rules before and it didn't get called doesn't mean that getting it called now is a bad thing. Like, it not only that, but Tony didn't check in with the official, right? There's video and it shows him look at the official point, but he wasn't even set yet. And he didn't even wait for the official to tell him, yeah, you're good. And then you see him look to the right at the ball. If you cannot tell that you are in front of the ball, that's on you. Like, don't be a dumbass. Like, what? The fact that they're crying like this is wild to me. And it feels like it's beneath them. And that's why it's so shocking, because it's like, come on, you guys, like, let's pull it together. And like you said, they have 100% benefited from some ticky-tack calls that went their way. And not only that, but they had their season ended in 2018 when Dee Ford lined up offsides against the Patriots, and it got called, and they ended up losing that game. And they didn't complain then. So why are we complaining now? It's lame. And has the officiating been god awful in the NFL this year?
It's terrible.
100%.
It's terrible.
Do they need to address it some way? Absolutely. Will they? They will not. And it's time to move forward.
But this wasn't a case where it really needed to be addressed. It was a cut and dry thing.
Nope. Not at all.
If they called an OPI on Kelsey where he kind of brushed his hand against the defender, I'd say, yeah, you should be pissed and you should be screaming at the official because enough of that shit. But for this, I mean, come on, especially as a Niners fan maybe I'm just still not over it. I don't know, but it just is what it is. So
miss me as a Niners fan with your complaints about,
give me
the officials.
Give me a break. But it's, officials aren't against your team or they aren't for another team. They're just incompetent. They just suck. So they're not trying to help the Chiefs over the years. They're just bad at their jobs. They weren't trying to help the Patriots over the years. They're just bad at their jobs. Yeah. So just the way things work out, but I don't know. All right, Brian, I gotta go take some medicine and go to sleep.
Do it. Feel better. We will be back later this week to preview the next installment of Bird Gauntlet 2023. The 49ers play 5 straight games against teams with bird mascots. They went Seahawks, Eagles, Seahawks. Next up is the Cardinals, looking to go 4-0. And then that epic Ravens matchup on Christmas Day. But just like the 49ers, we cannot overlook that Cardinals team. So we'll go over that later this week. But until then, for Al Sacco and his flu game, I'm Brian Renick. Later.
9-0-3. 1, 2, 3. Hey!
2400 Sports is an Odyssey company.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Whether you love true crime or comedy, celebrity interviews or news, you call the shots on what's in your podcast queue. And guess what? Now you can call them on your auto insurance too with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. It works just the way it sounds. You tell Progressive how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show you coverage options that fit your budget. Get your quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.